Please note, the Council for Responsible Nutrition, CRN, does not endorse any guest appearing on this podcast or any products or services they may discuss. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of CRN. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
You are listening to Supplement Source, the official podcast of the Council for Responsible Nutrition. And now your host, Jeff Ventura.
Hello, and thanks for listening to Supplement Source. My name is Jeff Ventura. I'm the Vice President of Communications here at CRN, and today I am delighted to welcome the Executive Director of HPA Global, Jeff Crowther.
Jeff, we are so excited to have you here today on Supplement Source. We really appreciate you joining. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here, Jeff. This is a great time for me to talk about all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I would say you got on my radar screen just because from a public affairs perspective, obviously tariffs have been front of mind for a lot of our members. And anything China certainly has a heightened degree of applicability given some of the volatility there in terms of the tariff structure. But before we get into that, I know we're going to touch on that for just a bit. Tell me a little bit about your organization. I know you're going through some rebranding. Help my listeners understand who you are and what you do.
Yeah, we've gone through a few different name changes. This group was founded by myself in 2010, and its official name is the U.S.-China Health Products Association. It's quite a long name, and it really reflected at that time the founding members were all American companies, and we worked primarily with U.S. companies. But within that first year, at that time I was living in China and lived there for 14 years. But in that 2010 period of time, 2011, I was getting contacted by a variety of different embassies in Beijing from Canada and the EU and asking, like, can we join this group? And there was nothing in our bylaws that said you had to be a U.S. company. So we started getting a lot of members that were not U.S. based. So that made no sense to have our name U.S.-China. So then we kind of took on the name HPA China, Health Products Association China, to kind of just reflect our focus of China and regardless of who the members are and where they're from. And most recently, right now, as of these last 2 weeks, I've been, on the phone constantly with our web designers and everything, getting a new website, new name, new distribution system for our newsletter, new email addresses, all that stuff. So now we're called HPA Global, and that's again another kind of situation where we're doing things benefit wise that are not just China focused. There's a lot of visibility things we're doing and marketing that go out into North America, EU, and other areas of the world, not just China. So that's kind of where we're at. Our website's up and running. It's hpaglobal.org. Still needs some back-end work, and we're going to move it to a private server soon, so it's a little faster. It's got 12 years of backed up news archives, so it's a very big database, which is slowing the current server down, and we need to move it. And as far as what we do, quickly, we just kind of help. We work with our members individually, so we work with each member based on what their needs are. We have members that are ingredient manufacturers. We have members that are finished product manufacturers that are selling directly to consumers. And we look at each member. We're more of a business trade association, so we are a nonprofit group. But unlike other associations that kind of like CRN or MPA, those type of groups are more based on lobbying and kind of looking at regulations. We also do regulatory work for our members, but our main focus is getting business done for members, helping them with cross-border partners, registrations, all that kind of stuff.
Let's talk about that because I'm fascinated. Well, let's touch on tariffs first, and then we'll get into the other topics. What can you tell my membership about the tariff situation? I know that, my gosh, it changes. It feels like it changes every week. But specifically with China, where are we now with tariffs and China?
Yeah, that's a crazy topic because it doesn't affect everyone equally. So it's hard to kind of talk blanket statement wise, but it really depends a lot on HS codes, and someone that's importing botanical extracts could see and feel a different pain than someone that's importing maybe vitamins or amino acids or a protein powder or any of those other things
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit different. And then throwing that monkey wrench in where the Supreme Court has now said that, Trump acted beyond his means, and we're looking at how is that going to work out and what's going to happen there. It's difficult to say. But I mean, most of our members and companies in preparation for this, we're looking at like anything greater than 30% is going to hurt. Anything up to 30%, most companies were kind of planning on being able to handle it in one way or another. But it seemed like it was a weekly event where Trump would raise them and tack on another 10% on top of what was already there.
Were you like a crisis hotline for some of your clients for a while?
Not really. I mean, because people did know that it was, hitting people differently. And most companies, our members prepared in advance and had, pulled in enough resources to last them for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Other ones just switched sourcing, and moved to Southeast Asia or South Asia and India and different places they could source from. But not everything is available globally, as we all know. There are things that China makes and they make alone. And that would lead to, that section 301 of the original trade policy where, companies could petition the government, the U.S. Trade Representative, and ask them for an exclusion if they can prove that ingredient was only available in China and it was a special ingredient that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Is that a rare thing to get that exception?
I mean, it's on paper and it's there, but from what I understand, talking to a few companies that have tried that or lawyers that have kind of petitioned that, it's not easy to get. Yeah. And I think the process of getting it approved is so long that you're getting pummeled by the tariffs while you're waiting for the exclusion.
While you're waiting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think the tariffs are, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, it's kind of a roller coaster ride at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A roller coaster that not a lot of people, I think, want to be on.
Yeah, or they didn't put their seatbelt on.
So let's talk about other issues. What else are you advising clients about these days that seems to be a central issue for if not all, a goodly few of them?
Yeah, China's an interesting market because it is a very big market for ingredients flowing out of the country to the rest of the world, primarily the U.S. being the largest market. But it's also, over the last 10 years has become a market that is, doable for a lot of finished product companies to import or export their products directly to China, which wasn't the case, prior, 10 years before that.
Right.
Regulations are going to be the primary thing that really causes a lot of stumbling blocks. There's a lot of hoops of fire you got to jump through for China to get products in the country, and there's so many different ways to go about doing it. Of course, I think most people know there's traditional trade. So there's the traditional sending pallet loads of stuff to China to be sold. That requires lots of registration, specifically for dietary supplements. There's a registration that we refer to in English as a nickname. People call it the blue hat registration because the logo looks like a little blue hat. So that's a registration that costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time. So we do help companies get that registration. We counsel, we give them, we go over what they're trying to do, the strategy, consulting, all that stuff. And then we can actually, if they want to go for that registration, it typically costs about $100,000 to $150,000 to get it. And it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years for a full registration. Then there's a newer system, which is, mostly just for single vitamins, which is a recording system. It's also a registration process, but it's much faster. You can get it done in 6 months or so, and it's a little bit less expensive. So we do all that consulting work to kind of figure out where the company is, what they're trying to do, if this is good for them, or let's go, shallow end first. Let's not jump into deep end head first here. And let's try cross-border e-commerce. And this would be for, finished product companies that are making, kind of B2C type of business, and enter the enter China through cross-border, because then you don't actually need the registration. You can go about it a different way.
So that's forgive my ignorance, but I just want to make sure I understand. So that's where you're bringing in product literally across a land border with China versus shipping it.
Well, this is a good way to look at it. So cross-border, the way the Chinese government looks at it, or the way it's kind of was presented, it's the same situation as if a Chinese citizen got on a plane, flew to America, walked into a dietary supplement store or wherever you buy these things, loaded up their shopping cart, put it in their bag, and then went back to China. The only thing they would need to do would be declare at customs that these things are being brought into the country, and if anything, they'd have to pay a tax. And that was never, all the times I went back and forth through China, living there for so long, no one ever went through customs and said, I'm going to willingly tell you I purchased stuff overseas. No one did that.
Right.
So what cross-border did for China, the government was basically, now there's a system in place where people can sell dietary supplements directly to Chinese consumers through websites in China. And as these things get imported and clear customs, there's automatic tax. So the Chinese government this is a way for them to guarantee they're going to get tax for these things. And then what it did for consumers is it really opened up a selection of products that just is not available in the actual brick and mortar stores at a reasonable price. So when I first got to China, a bottle of flaxseed oil could be like $150, whereas here was selling for $18.
Right.
So the prices were nuts over there when I first got there. So cross-border really helped the government get their money, helped consumers get access, and helped foreign companies get access to China consumers. So it was a win-win all the way around.
Are we not talking about Amazon for a reason? Should we be talking about Amazon? Is it a special lens that one has to look through when talking about China?
Yeah, well, Amazon doesn't really exist so much. I mean, they had offices in China years ago, and they made a push to get in there. But the domestic market, the Tmall and Alibaba and Little Red Book and Douyin, which is their TikTok, and Pinduoduo. I mean, they have so many different environments to shop that it's basically impossible for a foreign entity to kind of crack that nut. And also a lot of things are blocked. So Google, Facebook, Instagram, most all foreign kind of social media systems are blocked. So their major one is WeChat, which is what is used in China. Little Red Book is another one. So they have their counterparts to all those kind of American or European entities. But Tmall and JD and a few other ones are like really big Amazon-like entities in China.
Mm-hmm. Can an American company sell products through those platforms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So cross-border is going to run through a variety of, you can go through Tmall. Tmall has an office in LA. They have an office in New York, and they're if you contact them directly, you can. I mean, they want you to open a flagship store, so it's a very expensive proposition. Mm-hmm. But there's other ways to engage and work through those platforms or other social platforms to sell to China that are more affordable. It just depends on the investment you're willing to make to get that to happen. And then to confuse everyone further, there's two ways to handle cross-border. One is kind of it's almost like traditional trade where you're shipping a pallet load of stuff, but you're shipping it into the bonded free trade zone, into bonded warehouses. So even though it's in China, it's not. It's in a bonded free trade zone, and it doesn't become a trade product until it clears customs out of that trade zone.
Right.
So for companies that are selling a lot in China, that's typically how they would do cross-border. They would ship, bulk over to the trade zone, let it sit in there, and every time someone purchased the product in China, it would, one by one, it would clear customs and go directly to that person that bought it. So it could take 1 day or 3 days to get to them. Mm-hmm. The other way, which is less expensive, less risky, is direct shipment. So the company has the products here in America. A Chinese consumer buys it from them. The American company, we'll just use America as an example. The American company would then package that one thing up that they bought, send it directly to them, and that would be a direct shipment. And it wouldn't go through like bonded warehouse or any of that stuff. It would just go to the person. It would have to clear customs, though, as a personal shipment, and they would get it. But it would take, up to 2 weeks before they actually received it.
So
it takes a lot longer. Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to both ways. Again, that's part of the strategy of talking to someone like myself, of figuring out what would be the best solution for your company.
What surprises some of your clients about doing business in China culturally in terms of differences?
Oh, well, I mean, the language is the first one, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Right out of the gate there, you're speaking a completely different language. It's very difficult to deal with. But so I think that the one thing, I mean, there's not really one thing, but one of them is people feel, and I think it's going away because a lot of people have been burned by it, is everyone saw the China market growing so quickly that they said, let's just jump into China. We'll be doing, $2 million by this time next year, no problem. And it's not that simple. A lot of companies jumped on that bandwagon of, China's the easy market. They're just, all the customers in China, consumers are thirsty for, American and European products, and it's just not the case.
Well, they were paying $150 a bottle for flaxseed, and now it's got to be easier to sell them an $80 bottle, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, back then, and olive oil too. Olive oil was crazy expensive. Yeah. So the only people that bought it were like the super rich. I mean, it was a silly market back then. But so I think the fact that it's not easy to make, millions of dollars without a very big investment. I mean, you can, kind of a general rule of thumb is like a lot of these agencies that would help you with your marketing program will ask for like a minimum of, $600,000 investment for 6 months launch of your product. A lot of vitamin companies are small or medium enterprises. They're not just, like, here's $1 million. We'll just throw that at this and see if it works. So that surprises a lot of companies that wow, it's expensive to get involved there. But then it also surprises them the other way that there's ways to get involved that are, like I said, walking into the shallow end and tiptoeing. And that's how you kind of want to approach China. You want to be cautious, kind of approach them slowly.
Walk before you run kind of mentality.
Because there's going to be a point in time where you're going to get that gut punch and something's going to happen, and you don't want to be stuck with like, wow, we've got, 10,000 bottles of our products stuck in the trade zone. We don't know how to get it out. It's now being confiscated because we did things wrong. And, we just lost that whole initial investment. So it's better to crawl.
Do it right, yeah. right. Crawl under your own free will rather than crawling because you have to. Jeff, this has been great. What have we not talked about that you think we should talk about?
There's this is one we come up against a lot because there's new regulations coming out from Chinese customs that, foreign manufacturers of food have to register their facility with China. That was under a decree called Decree 248, which was put in place back in, I believe, January 1st, 2022. There's a new one coming out called Decree 280, and what that's supposed to do is help simplify the process, make it a little easier for companies to deal with, an English website to register, a little bit more straightforward, and also it hasn't been finalized yet, but there's rumors that in the different categories of products, supplements are now going to be moved into a category where you can self-register. So you as a company can go on the website by yourself, register yourself with the Chinese customs, whereas before you needed a official government recommendation. So you would have to approach, like, depending on what you're selling, either the U.S. Ag Department or U.S. FDA to get them to recommend that your facility is known to them and you can go ahead and register. So it made the 248 was a little bit, difficult for companies to deal with, especially if they didn't have a dedicated department that understood that. So that's kind of latest. The new one will go in effect June 1st, 2026. So this year, in June. So I would, strongly suggest people get familiar with that are manufacturing and shipping stuff to China.
Yeah. Listen, Jeff, you have been really amazing. Thank you so much for all of your insights today. I know that our membership and our listeners, our industry watchers out there who listen to Supplement Source will really appreciate all that you've offered today. So thank you again for being on our program.
Yeah, well, thank you a bunch for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Jeff Crowther, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tariffs are reshaping the dietary supplement industry, from ingredient sourcing to supply chain strategy and consumer pricing. Is your company prepared for what 2026 will bring? Join us March 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern for Tariffs and Trade in 2026. Implications for the dietary supplement industry. Hear from top trade attorney Brooke Ringel, customs and compliance expert Cindy Allen, and Pharmavite's VP of Procurement Ted Dollard. Moderated by CRN board member Paul Browner. Get practical insights, compliance strategies, and answers to your toughest trade questions. Plus a live Q&A, free for CRN members, $299 for non-members. Register now and stay ahead of trade uncertainty. Visit https://tinyurl.com/CRN trade today.